Well, good morning. Thanks so much. Good to see everybody back in Clearwater Beach. Thank you. Thank you. We're here joined by Senators Hooper and DeSantis from Pinellas County. I want to thank them for their work. We also have Representatives Cheney and Barfield. We have our Department of Business and Professional Regulation Secretary Melanie Griffin. And then we're going to hear from some locals who've been involved in the issue we're going to talk about, Earl Cooper and Ronnie Drimmer. So I want to thank everyone for being here. As you can see from the placard, this is an issue that we've been talking about for over a year now, about the need to provide condo owners with relief from some of the regulatory apparatus that has been instituted over the years. And we all remember the Surfside tragedy that happened down in South Florida in 2021. And there was obviously a lot of concern about how could a building just collapse in the middle of the night. We lost almost 100 people. A lot of people fled and were able to get out safely. But it was a really traumatic event, not just for Surfside, not just for South Florida, but for the entire state and even around the country and the world, because so many people who had units there had relationships in different parts of our country and even around to other countries. And so the legislature enacted provisions to try to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again. And while that was well-intentioned, in application, there were a lot of folks that had a lot of concerns about how some of these assessments were being done, whether people could even afford to even stay in their units. And, you know, the thing about it is some people will say, oh, well, your condos have gone up in value in the last, 5 years or whatever. So if you can't afford the assessment, you can just sell. The problem is all the housing has gone up, right, over the last. Part of it's inflation. Part of it is there's been a huge demand to be able to live here in the state of Florida. And so people's home values have gone up and they've risen. And so you can sell a condo unit. Maybe you do make a lot of money, but it isn't like you're going to have a lot of affordable options to be able to go. So that puts a lot of our condo residents in a real predicament, particularly senior citizens who are on fixed income. So we started taking input on this last year. We did some roundtables, including, I think we did one in Pinellas County, where we were listening to different folks who had these units, who were in the trenches, seeing what was happening. And I called for relief. I called for reform last year. We were thinking about, some people say, well, so those initial kind of structural assessments were due at the end of 2024. And some were saying, well, why shouldn't the legislature just come in and do it in 24? And I was actually supportive of that happening. It didn't seem like they were necessarily ready for a product. But we knew that time was of the essence. I called a special session in January of this year. Immigration was a big one, and we've had huge success with that. But we also called it for the condos, because I thought if we could start the year off with the condo reform, one, that'd give people peace of mind to know there's relief there, could also set different expectations, and then all these assessments could be done differently, and these reforms would really make a difference. That was not taken up, and I know a lot of people were very disappointed in the leadership, particularly in the House of Representatives, for not being willing to address it at that time. And quite frankly, it didn't look that promising through a lot of the legislative session. There was various products moving. I think the Senate in Florida had a good product, and fortunately, kind of at the last minute, probably the last week, that eventually passed. And we were able to get something that's now on my desk and that we will sign here today. So the bill that we will sign will make changes to the regulation of condos and cooperatives. It'll increase transparency and accountability on condominium associations, and it'll provide needed financial relief for condo owners. And there's a lot of different things that are in the bill. I know some of the speakers are going to be talking about some of these, but clearly one of the things that we were looking at, very important, was affordability. People need to be able to afford to live in these units, and especially if they're getting assessments on things that maybe they do need to be done, but it isn't like the integrity of the structure is at risk here. They need to be able to work those out, and you shouldn't have this mandate apply in that way. The bill also enhances accountability for condo associations. Very, very treacherous governance with these condo associations. I mean, good Lord, the politics, and I mean, like, you know, no thank you for wading into that. That's really tough. So we want to have accountability if those associations are not living up to what they're supposed to do. This also makes sure that our department here in Florida, professional regulation, will be able to prohibit association managers whose licenses have been revoked from holding any role in a management firm or being licensed for 10 years. And so I know we've had problems in these situations, and it's like, you know, human nature is what it is. There's always going to be problems in any entity or organization. Question is, like, are those problems addressed so that people know that doesn't work, or does the buck just getting passed? Do people just end up going different parts around the system? So I think it's important that we have good accountability. Bill also enhances oversight, transparency, and empowers condo owners to be more involved in the decision-making of their associations. And then finally, the bill promotes financial transparency, including requirements for increased financial transparency and requiring unit owners have access to their association's financial records, which I know a lot of people have been interested in doing. So there's a whole host of reforms that are in this bill. I know some of our speakers are going to talk about some of the individual items, but I do think that the final product that emerged shows that the people's voices were heard on this, the concerns were heard, and it wasn't just us that was gathering the concerns in the governor's office. I know the Senate, Florida Senate did a lot of work to try to get this thing in the right spot. So this will be meaningful for folks. I think that this will provide relief, but it's also a very complicated set of issues that you're dealing with. And as this legislation takes hold on July 1st, hopefully we'll see a lot of good things, but to the extent that there needs to be some cleanup next year when the legislature reconvenes, we got to be willing to do that. I'm also, while I'm here, pleased to be signing another piece of legislation, HB 393, to make improvements on the My Safe Florida condo pilot program based on feedback and input from condo owners to improve its effectiveness and to tailor the program more specifically to the condo owners who we are here to bring relief to today. And so My Safe Florida Condo was kind of piloted off of the My Safe Florida Home program. It makes these condo associations and the condo owners eligible for these grants to be able to make improvements that will promote resiliency against extreme weather events. And so we've obviously seen here in the Tampa Bay area the impacts of both Hurricanes Helene and Hurricanes Milton. When you do have those protections, when you do have those improvements, it makes a difference. I could tell you, just having dealt with these, I mean, we've had 6 major hurricanes in Florida in 7 years. I wasn't governor for the first 2, but I was going and visiting Hurricane Michael area in the immediate aftermath, Panhandle. Then I became governor, and we did a lot of the rehabilitation with Michael and even Irma for some of those areas. And then we had Ian, and then we had the more recent ones. When you have the improvements made, when there are things that are protective against hurricane, whether it's both the surge or it's against the winds, those structures do better. There's just no question. I mean, I would see in some of these Hurricane Michael, you'd see a structure just sitting there like nothing happened to it, and then right next to it, whatever was there was just gone. I mean, it was really a difference. And some of that is the construction, the more modern building codes, all that. Some of the older things are just more vulnerable. But I'll tell you, these things are good. So this will help answer the call there, and it could be something that we end up expanding. Now, one of the things I also called for in January when we called the special session on immigration, we did call for condo relief. I also called to replenish the My Safe Florida Home program because we had a lot of people sign up, a lot of people got approved, and then the program basically spent all the money from the people that were in the queue. So yeah, you come in and people get their grants. So you had a lot of people that had been approved, were on a waiting list, wasn't any money left for grants. And so I was like, in January, especially on the heels, because the legislature appropriated that money prior to Milton and prior to Helene, that was in the spring of 2024, why not replenish all that, get everybody off these waiting lists, at least in the affected counties of Debbie, Helene, and Milton, and then guess what? They could actually do these repairs and these and help with their rebuilding and everything. If they can rebuild it in a stronger way, why not just do it then? Of course, that wasn't what was done, and so now that they do have some money in the budget for this year, which I will prove. I don't know if it's going to be enough to really do everybody on the waiting list. I think there's like $100 million to do the backlog of the waiting list and another few $100 million, but obviously that other few $100 million is going to go to the waiting list too until the people are off the waiting list. But I thought that was a big missed opportunity when you know these people have already qualified. They've already been promised these grants. All you had to do is get the money out. They could have done, and a lot of this stuff would have been done by now, so that then you go into hurricane season. Now this money's not going to be available till July 1st. I just don't know how much of that is going to be able to realistically be accomplished. You know, knock on wood, hopefully we don't have to worry about it, but if we end up having another major storm, it's just a missed opportunity for that. But so that there will be money for that. We're going to work to get it out the door as quickly as possible, but that will become available on July 1st. So the two bills we're signing today are positive. The condo relief, we needed it. A lot of you spoke out about it, and it made an impact. Because I think if there wasn't public input, I don't think that this would have ended up passing, to be honest with you. I know that there was resistance in certain quarters, and so your voice did make a difference. And I know, you know, talking with Nick and Ed Hooper and some of my friends, and like they were like, we cannot leave town without doing this. Like, we have to do it. People need relief. People are dependent on us to get it done. So I'm really glad that that sentiment prevailed. But I do think that this is something that the folks that are concerned about the issue really did make a positive difference on. So thank you for making your voice heard. All right, I'm going to have a couple folks come up here, say a few things, then we'll go ahead and make it official. So we'll start with Secretary Melanie Griffin.
Thank you and good morning. As the governor said, I have the honor of leading the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation and its more than 1.7 million licensees, including our businesses and professionals. That includes also working with over 28,000 condo associations over the state, for which DBPR attends meetings, assists unit owners and board members, investigates complaints, enforces condo laws, and educates stakeholders regarding their rights and responsibilities. I want to sincerely thank the governor. As you've heard, he's very passionate about condo reform and calling for the relief that we're seeing here today, and his steadfast commitment to the well-being of Floridians and focus on providing relief to condo owners has been crucial to addressing the issues that are necessary to create reform. Thanks to his leadership and that of the legislature, we have greatly improved safety and transparency while also empowering unit owners to hold their boards and associations accountable. Specifically, House Bill 913, which the governor is here in part to sign today, is a significant step forward in further prioritizing condo owner interests across Florida. And we can help with prioritizing their priorities that they have voiced over and over again to us, while also continuing to make our condominium communities safe. The bill specifically does at least 5 things that I'm going to talk about. One is to extend the reserve study requirement. As the governor mentioned, we've heard over and over again from our citizens that they need financial relief. And this will provide a 1-year extension that will immediately give them relief from sudden and burdensome fee assessments that will greatly help our unit owners afford to stay in their homes across Florida. Second, it provides alternative funding options. The financial flexibility is provided here to help associations meet reserve requirements in alternative ways, and it includes an on-ramp for items that still have a useful life so that you don't have to immediately fund them 100%. You can actually honor that useful life and, again, provide financial relief to our unit owners, which is crucial. Third, it builds upon the prioritization of legislation to make sure that we have transparency in our condominium associations, that our unit owners have access to know what the boards are doing, and particularly to financial records regarding their association. Fourth, the legislation holds condo board members and community association managers accountable, but without penalizing our unit owners. We certainly don't want them to have any more burdens in their community life. And fifth, it requires condos to report information about their association to the department, which will allow DBPR to best contact associations and have the information that we need to actually help the citizens who are contacting us on a daily basis. With that, I want to give a warm thank you to everybody who was a part of this legislation, especially our friends at the legislature, including Senator Bradley and Representative Lopez, who worked tirelessly with the legislation to make sure it was in the best place it could be at the end of session. And want to thank the governor again for his leadership in making sure that House Bill 913 is a significant step forward in further prioritizing condo owner interests across Florida. Together, we can uphold these priorities voiced by the condo owners while also balancing their well-being and keeping them safe. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Earl Cooper, and I've got a condo over in Bel Air up on the bluff that is luckily was 10.5 feet above sea level. We had no hurricane damage in our unit, which one unit over, they had some washout. Another unit over had some washout. So we were very lucky. We were right in the middle of doing all of these maintenance repairs that the law had previously required us to do. And we're about 2/3 of the way through it now, maybe 75%, and it's going well. We had good response from our homeowners and unit owners. We had about 75% of them paid cash. Our building was pretty well-off type people. Some were the 100-year-old lady who had never made much money in her entire life, and she's living on Social Security. And there were some problems there. We offered a couple of different payment plans, but most people elected to pay out of their savings. What I have a hard time understanding is this is very complicated. My background is in construction, doing large commercial projects, and there are there's 4 or 5 different contractors on our project. The major contractor doing the structural repairs and painting is one. There are items that are owner furnished, owner installed. There are items that are owner furnished, contractor installed. There are items that are contractor furnished, owner installed. Plus, we've had some more engineers come out and look at problems that they uncover. Luckily, none of them were serious. This mostly just maintenance. And some of the condos that don't have somebody like me who's been in this business their entire life, I don't know how they do it. It's a full-time job for me, keeping track of this and trying to chase people down. Contractors chase them down, and the hurricanes just multiplied the problems. So it's a real problem. But luckily, we're going through it, and hopefully to be done by January and have a nice, shiny, new-looking building. But it's been a real challenge. And if I could say one more thing, is we have problems with the old building. Things going wrong, like we just lost 2 compressors, 2 20-ton compressors, or 2 10-ton compressors that aren't sitting on a shelf somewhere, and we have to get them to air condition the common areas, and then we have to go through the posting of meeting and all that to get the air conditioner, and the people in the building can't understand why we don't have air conditioning in the halls. And it's just, you're familiar with the posting regulations. And it's they need to do something with that for emergency repairs and something. And it's our building's probably the average age is, I would guess, 70, 75, and they need the air conditioning during the summer. So, any questions? No?
We're good.
It's tough out there.
All right.
Hello, my name's Ronnie Drimmer, and I'm the board president, volunteer board president, at a condominium that's 70 units, and it's a 55 and over condominium. And I want to thank the governor for getting some relief done and some accountability. The accountability factors in this bill are actually very good. we're on the list to get something from the My Safe Florida Home condo relief. We're hoping that we get something out of that. We did already get our inspection, and we had to put on a new roof, which we're still in the process of doing right now, because citizens said we needed a new roof. So that's been very difficult, and we have insurance issues that will need to be addressed, and I hope that those will get addressed, because we, at the moment, don't have hurricane insurance, because they raised the deductible so high to $600,000 that it doesn't really pay for us to pay for insurance when a roof is only $500,000. So we're in a little bit of a precarious situation right now, and so I'm hoping that something will be done about that. But I'd like to thank the governor for all his help and for listening to us.
Sure.
Okay? Thank you.
All right, Ed.
Governor, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Hooper, the Senator for District 21, where you're sitting or standing. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to start by making sure that Frank Shivas is in the back, and the owner of Bay Star Restaurants, our host today. Thank you, sir, for your hospitality. The governor mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to verify. He has been passionate about condo reform much sooner than the legislature took action. And in the Senate, our Senator Jennifer Bradley from Clay County, which probably doesn't have many condos, is the expert that we count on to make sure that we do as much good as we can, but more importantly, do no harm. And she has guided us through this previous session that seemed like it went on for a year and a half, but it was only 105 days for the 60-day session. But it's the right thing to do. We all attempted to make sure there was never a collapse again, like happened in Surfside. We overreacted, probably, and now it's time to make the change. People were losing their homes. Elderly people are losing their condos because they could not afford to make the increase in their monthly HOA fees. That's just wrong. 23 million people call this place home. There'll be more than that next year and the year after that. Governor, your leadership has gone unparalleled. We are proud that you grew up in this county, so it's almost like welcome home from. We drove across the bridge this morning, and you look at all those condos on the beach on Island Estates. Every one of those buildings was impacted by this previous fall storm. So we want to be here for you. We want to do the right thing. It's a pleasure to represent you in the Florida Senate. We promise to keep doing the best we can to make sure that Florida is the free state and a place where you can enjoy and live and get your families to come visit. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Nick?
Good morning. State Senator Nick DeSantis. I represent District 18, which is just south of here, southern half of Pinellas County. Number one, Governor, I want to thank you for your leadership. He is spot on. I think it was trying to figure out when it was, August or September. We had a roundtable in Pinellas County. We talked about the importance of a special session because we had folks like Earl and Ronnie giving us their feedback. And by the way, they were one of hundreds, if not thousands, of residents across our state saying we need relief. We have to make hard decisions. We're going to foreclose on our condo, or we're going to have to move out of the state of Florida. And for leaders in our state, whether it's at the executive or legislative branch, we want folks to come here and know that they can live in paradise. They can afford to live in our great state. This bill goes a long way in addressing those concerns. And then as we move forward, we need to identify other areas of concern that we can address. Ronnie and I talked about the insurance crisis, if you will, that her condo is facing. That's one condo out of thousands in our state that we're going to continue to listen to. Anytime that we can make a change legislatively, I'm certainly committed. And Senator Hooper is right. Senator Bradley has been an incredible champion on this issue. I want to thank her for her leadership. She's not able to be here today, but for someone who doesn't have a condo association in her district, for her to step up and lead the way, not this past session, but the last 2 sessions, and have that passion to work with our secretary time and time again to make sure we get this right is something that I'm very proud of. So I appreciate the governor's leadership, the leadership of the legislature, and the work is not done. So Ronnie, I look forward to speaking with you and the folks in your association. We're committed to get it done, and that's why we're here today. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, we appreciate everybody that was involved in this, Senator Jen Bradley for spearheading the legislation, and then everybody. Certainly, I know Ed and Nick were very concerned about it. We had a lot of our senators from southern Florida that were very interested in these reforms because, quite frankly, I mean, they've got a lot of these condo units, and that's just the nature of it. So we're glad to get it done. I was thinking when we were doing these roundtables that just everyone would have said, why not do it sooner? But, you know, sometimes the cookie crumbles in different ways. But we are here today. We're going to put our John Hancock on both of these bills in 1 second. So any of you guys that want to come up and be a part of the signing, we'll go ahead and do that. All right. So, there's the condo bill.
Please remain seated. Thank you.
My safe Florida home. All right. Today is the 23rd. Am I right?
Yes.
23rd. You're always right. All right. Anyone want a pen on these? Sure. There you go. Anyone else? Yeah. Anyone else? I got one more. Okay. Do we have any youth in the audience? I don't see any. You know, I've learned over the years when you give the kids the permanent marker. So we've got the non-permanent markers. So if you guys, you want one? Yeah. Come on up here. Happy birthday. What's your name? Isabella, how old are you? What grade are you going into? Oh, wow. Well, there you go. In fact, I'll tell you what. You have friends or siblings? Let's do so. This is the My State Florida condo pilot program bill. I think we'll do some good. I got 2 more. Anybody else? Okay. There we go. All right. So, the big one, and then the condo state toy. There you go. Good deal. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate everything. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Well, it's a beautiful day, and this is a great part of the state. Obviously, as Ed mentioned, you know, I grew up just a stone's throw from here, so I'm, in some respects, you're kind of spoiled. Like, you look and think, like, this is what a beach is everywhere, and it's not. Like, there's a lot of beaches that are just not even close to this all around the country. So it's a really great spot. And it's interesting, you know, we got, summer kind of came very quickly. It started to get really hot. But just so you know here, I looked at the weather. It's upper 90s in Tallahassee for highs. I think it's high 80s, low 90s in most other parts of the state. I don't even think Miami's going to hit 90. And so we're, legislature's out of Dodge now, so they don't have to worry about it. But we're in the sauna stage of Tallahassee weather, which I will be returning to today. And partially the reason I got to do that is because we're going through the budget that was just passed by the legislature last week. And, you know, I want to thank Ed Hooper as the budget chair for really working hard. It was a kind of a thankless task for what they had to do. And it's unfortunate, but the reality is, you know, the House leadership drug this out for 45 days for really no reason at all. The budget that was enacted is not any type of sea change. There was no major policy victories in it. It was something that could have been done 45 days ago. I hear these things about, some people in the House were saying, the Senate spends too much money and we're going to make sure that we stop, spending all this money. Just so you know, because first of all, the Senate House can put, and then I veto money, so the budget always ends up less. But Florida, we're the second lowest per capita state spend of all 50 states in the country. We have over 3 million more residents than New York State does, and yet New York State's budget is over twice the size of the state of Florida's budget. Would you rather get a driver's license in New York or Florida? Would you rather drive on the roads in New York or Florida? We have better education. So we're doing it in less than half the budget. In fact, New York City's budget, just New York City, is more than the entire city. We've got 23.5 million people now. New York City, I think, is like 8 million people, and yet their budget is more than ours. And I can tell you, I've driven on those roads going in and out of the city, and it's like you get motion sickness because there's so many potholes and all this other stuff. But I can tell you this, I'm not a political prognosticator knowing what's going to happen in that mayor's race that's going on right now, but I will tell you, if that leftist does win, you're going to see Palm Beach real estate go up another 20%. That will happen very quickly, because as bad as some of what they've had, this is like de Blasio on steroids. So we'll see. But and look, I follow these things to a certain extent because it affects us. When the current Chicago mayor got elected, Naples real estate went up, right? Because it's like they had bad and then they elected worse. And so some people say, we're just going to get out of Dodge. But the reality is we're less with 23.5 million people than even New York City is. If you look, since I've been governor, you take all the debt in Florida's history, 180 years, we've retired 41% of it just in my tenure as governor. So your share, we have the lowest per capita debt of any state in the country that has state debt, and it's not a lot anyways, but we've done a lot. So your share as a Florida citizen for your state debt is like $400 a person. Your share of the national debt from the federal government as a U.S. citizen is $106,000 per person. So it's just, and ours is declining and theirs is going up. We have the lowest number of state workers, state government employees per capita in the entire United States. And so that's just the reality. That was the reality before this session. That's the reality after this session. And so the posturing and some of the stuff that was done to drag this 45 days, that was theatrics. That was not operating in good faith. And look, I mean, the current year budget that we have spends less than the previous year budget, and our fiscal year is going to end soon, which is good, and we'll spend less in next fiscal year than current. Not a lot of states can say that. But if you look, I mean, we did, my recommendations at the beginning of the year were about $117.3 billion total, and the legislature enacted $117.8 billion total. So that's $500 million more than what I did, because they don't include what they put in the back of the bill when the House people say this stuff. So the reality is that's $500 million. And, I think if some of the House leadership is saying that we're spending too much and whatever, then don't I have to take at least $500 million off to get under what I recommended to be able to get where we are? So we're going to be going through all this and making, very sound decisions. But reality is we have less than 2 weeks with a lot of stuff on our desk. And there's all these things that get put in the budget, and I have to approve or veto each one individually. And part of the reason we've paid down so much debt is because I've been willing to do that. And there's some things that are obviously good for the state, like some of the stuff that Ed and Nick have done for help the hurricane damage. Like, I'm going to be supportive of that because I think it's important. There's other things that get thrown in there. Not that Ed would ever do this, but there's things that get in there. I don't know how the heck it gets in there. You can't do it, right, with your tax dollars. But there's a lot of stuff where that may be good. Maybe it's not. You got to kind of do research on it. And yes, if there's something that Ed wants to do in Safety Harbor, I can call him and say, hey, what's the deal with this? He can explain to me. All right, got you. I'm good. But I can't do that with everybody. And my staff and I have a limited amount of window now to be able to do this. So we're going to work through it. We're going to be very thoughtful about it. But we are here 45 days plus after the regular session, and it didn't really need to be that way. And I think a lot of people, Ed and his colleagues, I think they worked in good faith, but this is not the way that you want to be doing this. And so I just hope people appreciate that. But you guys should be proud of your senator here, because was not easy with what he had to deal with, and they were able to eventually land the plane. So thank you, buddy, for what you did during this time. All right. Yes. Well, I was on Maria Bartiromo's show yesterday and was able to articulate my views on that. But I think that President Trump, from the time he came down the escalator in 2015 till the president, has been very consistent. He's also been correct that the policy of the United States is that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And the reason why they can't have a nuclear weapon is, one, we don't want to see nuclear proliferation generally, but two, no country has been more hostile to the United States of America since 1979 than the Iranian mullahs have been. And that started with the hostage crisis in 79 and 80. It continued with the bombing of the Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, Lebanon, in 1983 that killed over 240 service members. You also saw it at the bombing of the Khobar Towers in 1996. And then when I was serving in Iraq as a junior officer, the majority of the casualties, both killed in action and wounded in action at that time in the conflict, 2007 into 2008, were at the hands of Iranian-backed Shia militia. So they are responsible for maiming thousands of American service members and probably killing over 1,000 U.S. service members. The terrorism you see in the Middle East, whether it's Houthis, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, that is all because of Iran. Iran funds terrorism around the world, and they're the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Third, Iran's ideology since 1979 and their ruling class with the Ayatollah and his other clerics, we rely on mutually assured destruction to ensure that someone's not going to launch a nuclear attack. I mean, during the Cold War, Soviets had enough nuclear missiles to wipe America off the map. We had more than enough to wipe them off the map. They knew if they fired one at us, we'd fire back, and then we'd both end up going in a cloud of smoke. So that deterred, because it just wasn't worth doing. You know, the problem with Iran is these are militant Shia Islamists, and so they have a very apocalyptic, radical ideology. So mutually assured destruction for them, if they fire at Israel and knowing Israel will fire back and do immense damage, or the United States, I don't know if they could reach the United States yet, but if they did that now, because they do consider us the great Satan, they know that would be a lot of damage, but that may not be a deterrent for them. That may be an inducement to them. That may be furthering what they want to do. So I think people have recognized that them being able to acquire a nuclear weapon would be a unique challenge, not just for the region, but throughout the world. And you know, no one's really been willing to fully do anything about it. And I think President Trump showed decisiveness to be able, you know, to act when he did. Now people say, well, what are they going to do to respond? And they may, right? I don't think they can respond effectively conventionally against U.S. forces. They just don't have the ability. But that's not typically how they operate. They operate through these proxy groups, through these militia groups, through Hezbollah, through all this stuff. Who knows who they sent across the southern border during Biden's administration? We don't know, but I just think it's important to point out they've been waging conflict against the United States since 1979. They've really just been limited by their means. If they had more means, they would have done more. So I don't know that it's going to radically change certainly their capability, but their posture was hostile before this, and obviously, you know, it will be hostile since then. Now, for our part, when the IDF operations commenced against Iran and Iran started firing those ballistic missiles into Israel, we knew that that would impact residents of the state of Florida, because we have college students who are studying abroad that are students at our state university system. We have families that go on vacation to Israel. We had church groups that were going over there. We had Birthright Israel, people that were going to Israel for the first time in their lives. And we knew that they were in dire straits. because Ben Gurion Airport was totally shut down. It didn't like you've got a lot of great options. It didn't like you're in Florida and you can just go to Georgia or go to South Carolina. It's like, that region is not the easiest region for folks. And so we knew there was going to be need. We had effectuated rescues after October 7, 2023, with Florida's Division of Emergency Management when the Hamas attacks occurred, and we were able to rescue a lot of people from there. We've also rescued Floridians and Americans from instability in Haiti at the beginning of 2024. So this is just something that we do, and we kind of know how to do it from an emergency management perspective. This was more difficult than those other operations, but we were able to get 1,500 out during the first week out of Israel. A lot of them ended up in Cyprus, boated to Cyprus, and then we've been running flights now from from wherever. I mean, I don't even want to give the details. So we're just running flights. We're running flights to the U.S. So I was there to greet folks on either Thursday or Friday of last week, and you see somebody that's like 20 years old that thought they were just going to study some. I saw a big church group from North Florida. They're going there to look at all the historic sites. And you can open the Bible. They can point to you, like, here's where David and Goliath. You go to Bethlehem. You can go to all these places. And it's unlike anything you'll ever do from a perspective of not just faith, but just the incredible history of thousands of years. I mean, Florida, our history, I was doing the National Guard Symposium, and we joke with Massachusetts because they claim they have the earliest National Guard muster in 1636. I said, St. Augustine, the Spanish, 1565. So Florida, we kind of got some decent history in terms of that, and yet that is chump change compared to over there. So this is like a really, really memorable, and some people, life-changing experience to go over there. Then to have it interrupted with this, where people don't really know where to turn, I think people were just genuinely appreciative that the state of Florida was there to help. So those operations are ongoing. We, of course, anticipate that there'll be more Iranian attacks in Israel. And sometimes what happens in these things is the response to a U.S. action will be just simply to take it out on Israel. So that's something that we are contemplating. But the operations will continue, and I know that there was a little bit of not delay, but just during the Sabbath, some of the folks weren't traveling on Friday night and Saturday into Saturday night. So those flights, though, will be continuous until we get people to safety.
Regarding the budget and also the bills that are in front of your desk right now, if I can ask, I know property taxes are not really addressed here. Can you talk about that? But also, a bill was on your desk that would ban drilling for oil within 10 miles of the Apalachicola River Basin in North Florida. What are your thoughts about that?
So we need property tax relief for Floridians. That just needs to happen. Now, I've also said I wanted to do some short-term relief. We're limited at the state level because the property tax is a local issue. There is some of that revenue that gets directed to education because of the way we fund Florida schools from the state level. But the reality is your millage rate is set by local governments. Constitutionally, the power to tax property is local governments. If we wanted to pass a law to say you couldn't do that, we wouldn't be effective in doing it. We'd have to go to the Constitution. And so that means we've got to put it on the ballot for 2026, and then voters need to approve this on the ballot. And so my vision is that if you own your own home, then that means you should not have to perpetually pay rent to the government every year. Because right now, you bought a house 50 years ago, and who knows how much you paid then. With inflation and property values going up, they're now telling you your house is worth so much more. And even if you have homestead, it doesn't completely prevent increases. So now you're on a fixed income. You just got to keep writing a check each and every year. And then even for young families, people that buy homes now for the first time, they're buying it at a much higher valuation than what you would have been paying 5 or 6 years ago. That means their tax basis is a lot higher. So that means they're getting hit all the time. And we don't need to live that way. We really don't. We've shown at the state level we don't have an income tax. It's funny because people will talk about California, and they'll do the comparisons at Florida and California. California has the highest state income tax. And so you'd think that, okay, they're socking it to the Silicon Valley wealthy people, but they're going to look out for the working class. No, they have the highest sales tax in the country too. And yet it still doesn't manage to work. So our sales tax is on the lower end, and we don't do income tax, but yet we're able to do a lot of key things that really matter. So on and on local governments, some people say, well, especially these rural counties, well, they rely on property tax revenue to be able to fund the core services. And I had my folks run the numbers. I think we have 31 or 32 of 67 counties in Florida that are considered fiscally constrained. And it's like, look, Pinellas, you can have people want to come visit here. They pay money to stay in the hotels. They pay tax while they're here doing stuff. Some of our fiscally constrained and some of our more rural areas, they may not be a hub for tourism. They may not have as much industry in their communities, and so their tax base just may be more challenging. So I understand the concerns, but I ran the numbers. If you have 31, I think it's 31 fiscally constrained, and you totally eliminated and said you are not allowed to do any property tax on any Florida resident's homesteaded primary residence, their property, we could backfill that for about $300 million a year. And just so put that in perspective, that is not a heavy lift for the state of Florida. That's an easy thing that we could do. So I think it can be done. We're going to be working hard. I know Senate President Ben Albritton is very interested in pursuing this major reform. But could you imagine, you can come to Florida, I mean, not just for retirees, for families, everything, but just think about if you pay no income tax and then you actually own your home without having to fork over money to the government every year, that is the free state of Florida. Oh, well, so I haven't looked at the bill, but they did the bill because this goes back. There's a company that had historically had permits, not in the Apalachicola Bay, but kind of within a 50-mile radius, and they had been getting those awarded every year. Some of the folks locally didn't like it, but the reality is they ended up getting some type of litigation. There's an adverse administrative law decision against that company. So because of the kind of change in law, the Division of Environmental Protection, Department of Environmental Protection, Florida, denied the permit. And so what the bill was seeking to do, that permit has actually been denied. So I haven't looked at it. I know they were pushing it because they didn't like the fact that this company had historically gotten these permits. There's been a change in kind of how the administrative analysis is, I guess, and so the department is following that. And by following that, they did deny that permit. But I think, and I'm not sure whether the administrative law judge was right or whether DEP was right historically. I don't know, but I do know that they've sided with that decision and denied the permit. Anything else? Yes.
I've got a question, but before I do that, before I ask it, I just want to thank you for three things. I think, first of all, thank you for your service. Secondly, I want to thank you for what you've done to the legal immigrant, because I'm a legal immigrant. I've been in the U.S. for over 46 years now. Unfortunately, when I first came over here, we went to a blue state. It wasn't blue back then. It was Illinois. And then, of course, we moved to...
That was a little blue.
But that got worse, right? And then, because of the harsh conditions in winter over there, we moved to Washington, and it's become really, really, really bad.
Washington State or D.C.?
Here, we're here since 20...
Washington State or Washington, D.C.?
Washington State,
Okay.
right? And so...
Well, it's actually, the thing is, it's like you have this big state, and it's like 95% red, but then you have Seattle, which overwhelms everything else. And so, like, the people that live in that greater Seattle area, they run the state, and everybody else is basically chopped liver when it comes to policy.
And I'm glad that Governor Minster is out, but he was replaced by even worse. So I want to thank you for doing what you've done during the COVID crisis. You kept our state open. And now my question is, I don't know if it's too early, but I know that your
Probably it is.
You're on your final term because of the term limits. I just want to know if you have any endorsement for the next one.
So, no, I mean, basically, I've got to get through this budget process. I mean, that's what I've been telling people. You have these legislative sessions. That's where people kind of focus. So I don't really focus on politics during that. We'll go through the budget. We'll do this. We'll sign it, and then we can start to kind of look at some of these other things about going forward. So people have been asking me for many months now, and I've been basically saying the same thing. So first things first, we're going to get through all this. But I will say, I mean, I think it's the fact that you saw some of the shenanigans that were pulled by the leadership in the House. A lot of people look to Florida for leadership. People have moved here to escape bad policies and come to embrace good policies. Why would you want to try to sabotage that from within? I don't understand the process. I mean, you mentioned the illegal immigration. I called the special session in January. Had I not called that, it would not have gotten done. I can tell you, if I had left it to the regular session, there is no way in hell that the House leadership would have been willing to do it. We had to focus the attention on a hot button issue. I had a series of very strong proposals, and it's not like they were like mine. This is what people who know this space know needs to be done. And most prominently is we wanted to require all state and local law enforcement agencies to participate and assist ICE in enforcing immigration laws. If you don't do that, then you're not going to get the job done. And that was tanked by the House Speaker initially. He tried to run a bill that would have eliminated the governor's ability to do anything to enforce immigration law with the federal government. That's a de facto amnesty bill. I'm sorry. That is wrong. And we fought it. The voters rejected it. And so we ended up getting what we got. And there was a reason why Florida has half of the 287G agreements in the country with state and local law enforcement, because we required it. We required participation. That's the easiest way to participate. And we should not have been having, that should not have been an issue. That was the #1 issue that President Trump got reelected on. It was been a #1 issue these guys run for office on for years and years. And to have seen that, I'm like, man, why don't you just do what you told voters you're going to do? So I do think that there's a problem of folks running, these consultants will say what the voters want to hear, but then somehow you think you can kind of get up there and do something different. That ain't the way it works. You got to follow through with what you said you're going to do, and when you don't, I think it creates a lot of static. And so I think you saw some of that there. We were able to land the plane on the immigration, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm having to fight the leadership. This is the biggest House of Representatives majority the state of Florida has ever had for Republicans, almost a 3-to-1 majority. And I'm having to fight tooth and nail to get legislation to deport illegals and to make sure our local governments are helping out with this. I mean, the House should have called the special session. It shouldn't even require. They should have been crawling all over hot coals barefoot to get up to Tallahassee to do a special session. That's what the voters wanted on that, and it just wasn't done. And so, so I would just tell folks out there, people have kind of been able to think, oh, Florida, Florida leads, we get it done, we do this, we do that. But the reality is I do think that that's fragile, and I think that this the 2025 has shown that. So we'll see, kind of how we go forward. But do not sleep on the future of the state of Florida. I think that you can definitely see a variety of different pathways going forward. To me, the obvious pathway is to solidify the success we've had and build on that going forward, and I think that can be done. Thanks, guys. See you later.